In this moment, there is nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one to be. It is time to rest. You have done enough today. You have been enough. So lay down. Take a deep breath. Hold it in and let it out. Let your body soften. Let your muscles release. Feel your shoulders drop, your arms relax, your legs ease. Close your eyes. Don't fight your thoughts. Let them drift, one by one, fading. Let the world fade and focus only on this moment. And now, simply listen. Listen to this story and allow yourself to rest. It was late evening, the kind of evening where nothing much happens and nothing much is expected to happen. A man sat in an old wooden chair by a fire. The fire wasn't too big nor too small. It gave off just enough heat to feel comfortable without being overwhelming. The man shifted slightly, adjusted the way he leaned back, and settled again. He had a glass of whiskey in his hand. The whiskey wasn't fancy, but it wasn't poor either. It was simply whiskey. He raised the glass, let it rest for a moment near his lips, and then took a slow sip. The taste was warm, familiar, and predictable. He swallowed, set the glass down on the small table beside him, and looked at the fire. The fire crackled. A log shifted. A small ember glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed again. The man blinked slowly, breathed through his nose, and exhaled. The night outside was quiet, not perfectly silent. There were the faintest hints of wind moving through the trees. A small creak of the house settling, and, once in a while, the sound of a night bird calling out. But it was all faint, faint enough to fade into the background. He reached for his glass again, not quickly, but with the kind of movement that didn't need to be hurried. He lifted it, turned it gently in his hand, and watched the whiskey swirl. The firelight caught the amber liquid, made it glow for a moment, then fall still again. He took another sip. Not too much, not too little, just enough. The chair creaked as he leaned back again. The creak wasn't sharp or surprising. It was the same creak it had made many times before, always in the same spot, always with the same tone. He listened to it, then forgot about it, then listened again. The fire kept burning. Another log shifted. A faint puff of ash rose, then fell. The flames moved lazily, as though they weren't in a rush either. They didn't climb too high. They didn't vanish too quickly. They just burned. The man thought about nothing in particular. He considered the grain of the wood in the chair arm. he thought briefly about whether the whiskey glass was perfectly round or not. He wondered how many times the fire had burned in that same fireplace. But none of the thoughts stayed long. They came, drifted by, and left, as though they weren't very important. He looked at the whiskey again. It was still there, still the same color, still the same shape. He lifted it, sipped, swallowed, and put it back down. The air was cool on the edges of his skin, but warm enough near the fire. It balanced in a way that didn't ask for a blanket, but also didn't ask for the fire to be stoked any further. It was just right. The fire crackled again. The sound was soft, steady, and expected. The man listened to it. Then he looked at it. Then he listened again. Then he didn't do much of anything at all. He rubbed his hand slowly along the arm of the chair. The wood was smooth in some places, rough in others. It had grooves where countless fingers had tapped, rested, or leaned. He noticed one small mark near the edge and thought about how long it had been there. Perhaps years, perhaps decades. It didn't matter. It was just there. He took another sip of whiskey. The liquid moved over his tongue in the same way it always did, leaving the same warmth, the same finish. He swallowed, set the glass down again, and breathed out. The fire dimmed slightly, then sparked again. The man didn't move quickly to add more wood. He just watched. He knew it would need another log eventually, but not now. Now was still enough. Time passed, though he couldn't say how much. The minutes didn't matter. The hours didn't matter. All that mattered was the steady repetition of sip, swallow, breathe, listen, and watch. His eyelids felt heavier now, but he didn't fight them. He let them droop, then lifted them again, then let them droop once more. Each time they stayed lower. Each time the fire blurred a little more. He leaned further back in the chair. The wood groaned again, familiar and expected. He took what he knew would be the last sip of whiskey for the night. Not because the glass was empty, it wasn't, but because the warmth of it was enough. He placed the glass carefully down, listened to the faint clink against the table, and then rested his hand on the chair again. The fire continued to glow. The chair continued to creak. The night continued to be quiet. And the man sat there, eyes half closed, breathing slow, thoughts drifting. Not much more happened. Not much more needed to. The fire, the chair, the whiskey, That was all. And it was enough.